Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to talk about how I got 17x9s to fit up on the front of my MR2. Now, generally speaking for the MR2 on the front end, 17x8 with a plus 35 is the most aggressive that most people will go. Recently though, I've noticed more and more people going with 17x9s in the front, and there's really two reasons why someone would do that. One is if like you're going for a stance look, super aggressive offset and stuff like that. Or number two, if you're like me and you like doing motorsports, so doing track days, autocrosses, and things of that nature. As I mentioned, I'm going to talk about how I made this setup work for me, but everyone's going to have a slightly different approach, and that's okay. First, let's talk about the wheels that I got. These are 17x9s with a plus 35. The tires are 245/40. Of course, they're in a 17. I do want to note that a lot of people that run the 17x9 actually run a plus 22 offset just so they can make sure that the wheel doesn't hit the coilover. I am not running as much static camber, so that's why I'm able to get away with that higher offset. And I do want to note that I am running a 5mm slip-on spacer just to make sure there's no contact. There's like 2mm without the spacer, but I would rather be safe than sorry.
Here's a clip to show you guys how close the wheel and coilover get. There's still enough room. There shouldn't be any issues of contact.
Now that we got the wheels out of the way, we got to talk about the camber plates.
I am running Fortune Auto coilovers, and these are the camber plates that came on the coilovers. So this actually allows me to lean the coilover more towards the midline of the car, but it's not going to be enough to get the wheels to fit. What I ended up buying were the Wilhelm coilover camber plates, and if you notice, there's not actually any adjustment here. Here's another clip of it right underneath the car, so you can see that it just moves the coilover inward, but also back a little bit.
The Wilhelm top mounts push the coilover more to the midline of the car, more so than a lot of the other camber plates that you get on like your Fortunatos, BCs, etc. Doing that gives you extra room for a wider tire.
Because there's no camber adjustment up here, what I did was I came down here, I loosened up these crash bolts, and then I pushed the knuckle to the most outward position.
Because of how much the coilovers are now slanted inward, that still netted me about 3 degrees of negative camber, which for the motorsport stuff I do is perfect. I do want to note that I did switch out crash bolts, so these were the ones that came on the car. The ones that I put on there were a little bit smaller. I bought them from Tools R Us. I'll actually make sure to link to those down below and anything else that I used in this video. Please note, none of these companies that I'm linking to are sponsors. I just bought their stuff because they sell good stuff, and they're MR2 vendors. We always want to support people in the community. Anyways, between the top mounts, the crash bolts, and then pushing the hub as far outward as I potentially could, that allowed me to gain the clearance so the wheels didn't hit the coilover. From there, I did run into another issue, and that's rubbing on the backside of the wheel well. I solved that problem doing a couple things. So first off, my car is a 93, which means it didn't have adjustable strut rods from the factory. So what I did was I purchased the Wilhelm adjustable strut rods right here.
The adjustable strut rods allowed me to add caster, which allowed me to pull the wheel forward in the wheel well to minimize the rubbing.
I do want to know adding the caster has its benefits, but also its cons. So the benefit and the cool thing is that as I turn the steering wheel, I get camber, which is awesome because that's when I tend to need it the most. But the downside is it can cause the steering to feel really heavy. And so this car is a manual rack. It can be a little heavy at times, but it's not the end of the world. But that's definitely something to consider if you're going to add a bunch of caster to make this setup fit.
The other thing I did to make this setup fit is I actually hammered down the pinch weld that's right here. Some people go a lot more extreme with the hammering, but I was able to get away with just doing this. I will note I do have a little bit of rubbing at full lock still, but that's it. It's really not bad at all.
You will notice that I don't have the fender liners on my car. This car was actually wrecked before I bought it, so it didn't have any when I got it. And if you did want to run this setup, you'd have to get rid of the fender liners. The last thing to get this to fit is just getting clearance from the fenders themselves. And I gotta tell you, the way that I did it, I really wish I would have done it differently.
What I did was I rolled the fenders pretty aggressively, and I'm trying to give you guys an aerial view. It's not straight, it's wavy and thin like bacon.
I'm honestly embarrassed of the way that that turned out, and if I had to do it again, I would have taken a different approach. So something I've seen other people do
is they'll actually cut their fender right here, I believe, or maybe it's right above, and then what they'll do is they'll have a little piece of metal come out, and then they'll have it come down and attach down here. Anyways, cutting this piece out lets them actually pull the top portion of the fender out.
That definitely would have looked a lot better in this situation because looking at the waviness really bothers me. Also, I do recall seeing a video of another MR2 owner doing what I just described. So I'm gonna find find that video and I'll make sure to post it in the description down below. I've been running this setup now, I think for the better part of like 6+ months. I've taken it to autocross events. I was even daily driving the car during summer when the weather is nice, of course. And I really like the setup. I like the way that it feels. In the back, I'm running 17x9s. It's almost a square setup. It's a 255 in the back, but that's mainly because I happen to have those tires. In the future, it's going to be 245 all the way around. Really, the only thing I would change about this is, again, just the fender situation. I really should have just cut them down here at the bottom, and that would have been way better. But yeah, other than that, I have no complaints about it. Anyways, if you're considering doing this type of particular setup, I hope this video was very helpful to you, so you know some of the pros, cons, the work that's going to go into making this type of setup work. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments section below. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next video with more MR2 content.